The climate of a department involves how staff interact, engage, and exchange ideas to create a positive work environment. It's important to build a healthy team climate to ensure that staff feel comfortable, confident, and supported when around one another. Many managers don't focus on climate but simply accept the way it is when they arrive. Thus, they possibly miss a major opportunity to build a more effective and efficient team. We'll focus on evaluating your current climate, identifying opportunities, and possibly improving it in this episode. Hi, I'm Rick Kendall.
And I'm Fred Ball.
Welcome to Management Mastery. The purpose of these podcasts is to share what each of us has learned about good and bad management in our combined over 40 years of experience, both as managers and executive coaches. During that time, we've coached managers at every level in companies from Fortune 100s to brand new startups in all major businesses, including nonprofits, government, and education. So whether you're just starting in your first management position or are an experienced manager looking to strengthen your management skills, we know our podcast will be valuable to you.
Before focusing on your department climate, you must first have a clear understanding of the larger company culture. That is, the company-wide established long-term values and beliefs. This company culture sets the overriding framework within which your department must fit. How companies have started, grown, and choose to deal with their employees are important to understand. Some companies value independent contribution, autonomy, and competition among staff. Other firms value stability, predictability, and maintaining the status quo. Depending on where your company falls on the culture spectrum will impact your behavior if you want to make changes in your department's climate.
Within the company culture, departments will have their own manner of dealing and handling business issues and their own personality. This is the department climate. What you, the manager, must remember is that you still operate within the larger company culture. So if senior management stresses collegiality, caring, and strong interpersonal relationships, your success will be dependent on building those abilities in your department.
Yeah, that's an important point, that relationship between climate and culture, and the importance of understanding culture first and then dealing with climate and then understanding that culture if you have to make any changes.
Right. I worked with a client who was starting a new position in a company that was a leader but in a brand new industry. So the rules were being made, everybody was learning as they were going, and the corporate culture was sort of, if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning anything. So it was very tolerant of being proactive and making mistakes. And that led to my client having to change the culture of his, that is the climate of his department, because it was very much in an old, don't make any mistakes, wait for somebody to tell you what to do before you do anything. And we had to change that around.
Yeah, that would be an important point in that type of company.
Oh, yeah.
So what are the steps in creating a successful climate? First, you need to review and assess the current climate. That is, you need to see how the policies, procedures, and interactions currently function in the department. For example, you'll want to ask yourself, are staff members communicating well with each other? Do they seem to care about each other and have each other's backs?
Yeah, and you'll also want to see if they relate well to staff in other departments throughout the company, or does there seem to be unnecessary or counterproductive competition? And also, Are they focused on delivering outstanding products or services to your clients? And do they communicate well with their clients? And do the staff feel free to let you know as manager when there's a problem, or do they feel and do they feel there won't be any recrimination if they do? Now, that's very important that people feel free to point out a problem when there is one.
Finally, do staff members appear to think through issues and try to resolve them themselves before asking for help? In short, you want to identify the strengths and weaknesses that you see, as well as seek input from your staff and clients on what changes, if any, you may want to make in the department climate.
Right. And as you're doing your assessment, you also want to remind staff of, as we're talking about, the broader company culture. Review the company vision and values and mission with your staff. I mean, that was something the client I'd just been talking about had to do with his staff, was, let them know that they have to be more proactive, more, getting ahead of the problem rather than waiting for somebody to bring the problem to them. And explain how the corporate culture impacts everyone and how it impacts your department. And you want to be sure that any decisions you make about department policy and climate are consistent and supportive of the broader company culture.
That's a valid and valuable point, Rick. The fact that the manager, who may think people probably understand the company culture, don't really understand the company culture. Many people who come into an assignment just have their head down, what's my job? And they function on their job. And here, the manager can provide a valuable service to help them to understand not only their role, but how their role fits into the department and how the department fits into the company. Throughout the process, you need to encourage open communication. As you evaluate each employee's strengths and current responsibilities, let staff know in general terms what you are finding and thinking, and encourage their feedback. You want to review the department's strategy and operations with staff to see if any changes are needed.
Yeah, and you're going to have to decide if any changes in assignments will strengthen the team. Again, coming back to this example I've been talking about, that there were a lot of changes in the personnel because the original climate of that department was not in sync with the company culture, and you've got to encourage your staff to make comments and suggestions for improvement in the department workflow and how it can be more consistent with the overall corporate objectives. And you also want to ask your staff if there are any private concerns they have. For example, do they have problems with a colleague, something, not where they're not getting along, and consider whether any affected employees are willing to make the change. And discuss with each staff person how the changes will help them, so they see the purpose and that it's consistent with their own career interests. And if there are openings, tell staff how much you value the importance of hiring staff who bring strong needed skills that will fit in with the department values. So, getting the staff involved in networking and recruiting is also an important aspect of that.
The idea that you may have to make changes is one that you're really going to have to be aware of and spend time thinking about. Any time that I have been coaching anyone and they've had to make a change of assignment, for example, changing a client of someone, that usually is a very tense time. People don't want to give up clients. especially if they're important clients, and yet it may be in the department's best interest. Sometimes the client comes and says, I want someone different to cover me. So that's going to be a very tense time for the manager. The other is if you as the manager feel you have to change someone's assignment. Let's say that they're going to move from sales to marketing, for example. That's going to be, again, it can be a very tough move for someone. They may not realize that they would be better off in the new area. You may have to help them to understand. But any time that you're changing and who the client is, or you're changing someone's role, you have to be very, very aware and spend the time to think through the process.
Oh, I totally agree, and it can be as subtle as saying, look, we want to go from being a reactive order taker to a proactive strategic thinking department, and getting people to get out of their comfort zone is always a challenge, even though at the end of the day it improves everybody's career path. But yeah, you've got to really shepherd it carefully.
Yeah, and throughout this whole thing, it's a key role of the manager to foster strong relationships among department staff. Demonstrate through your behavior the way you want people to treat one another. It's back to the how would I want to be treated, and then let's treat others the same way. You want to motivate staff to build positive, respectful, and inclusive relationships with each other, to listen actively to one another and use their voice to share their thoughts and opinions, and then to conduct team building activities and events. You want to try and do that. It may be pizza on Friday. It may be a picnic. It may be any one of a number of things.
Oh yeah, that really, sometimes you think, oh, that's kind of silly, but it when it's done right, it's so effective. Another key function of the manager is to encourage and support staff development in a number of areas. Again, I worked with a client that had a very talented young woman working for him who had sort of been shunted off to a back office somewhere. And when she came to the attention of my client, he said, geez, she's so good. And he wanted to give her more responsibility. And she actually, on her own, mentioned, the local university had a program for to get your MBA while you were working, and she expressed interest, and he was able to get the company to support her in that. And here she was, this junior analyst, and my client sent her off, and she worked. She didn't cut back on her own workload, but successfully completed this course. This is a number of years ago. She is now an executive vice president at the same company.
Yeah, those are good stories.
Yeah. I mean, you really it can really make a difference how you encourage your staff people. And, you demonstrate yourself that you embody a learning agenda, that you are doing it yourself. So that's serving as a good example for self-improvement to your staff will go a long way.
Another part of this is to help staff to develop and strengthen their critical thinking skills by helping staff members to solve a problem and by asking questions to help them understand the context as well as the specific issue. Asking the staff member what potential solutions they are considering, adding additional data if it is needed to be considered, and helping the staff member to arrive at their own solution and implement it.
Yeah, I think a big part of that as the manager is to help staff sometimes think a little outside the box. Sometimes you get the sense that I'm just getting rote answers or rote approaches. And you're not necessarily saying, I want you to do this differently, but is there a different way to think about it? And does that help us out by looking at it differently? Above all, it's important to focus on delivering results and recognizing good performance. You want to set and communicate a clear customer-centered direction that everyone understands. And you want to translate the strategy into specific tactical goals to create flawless operational execution. And, establish the team alignment so that everybody clearly understands what their roles are, and there's an agreed upon working approach and autonomy with discretion in task selection and methods. So people feel they have some control over what they're doing and input in how they execute it.
In addition, you want to set challenging, measurable individual and team goals. Set a clear understanding of evaluation methodology, and let them know there'll be constant evaluation and immediate feedback. You want to recognize staff members or a team upon completion of a complex and successful task. You want to praise them in public if possible. And you may want to award staff members who reach a milestone. That may be a number of years with the company or something else.
Right. But that public recognition on a regular basis is so important. I mean, it motivates the individual who's recognized, and it also motivates, kind of the competitive juices in the other members of the team to, we want to get on the board too. So in summary, climate or department climate is where staff interact, engage, and exchange ideas to create a positive work environment. It's important to build a healthy team climate to ensure that staff feel comfortable, confident, and supported when around one another. It takes concentration and effort on your part as the manager to maintain and improve your department's climate. We hope you have found this podcast useful and will come back again for more management mastery. If you have any comments about this or any of our episodes, or would like to find out more about our other services, including one-on-one coaching and group seminars for managers, visit our website at careercoachclass.com. Thanks for listening.